Hello all, welcome to Public Cloud Design Tips and Tricks again. Today I will be covering the fifth part of Azure security. We have already started few before. Uh, Again, the problem statement is what are the practices available in Azure Cloud to secure the ecosystem? And as a part of all these building blocks, today I will be covering the network part, and this will be a very small session, so I'll be just covering 4 or 5 aspects of network security within Azure. Because in my previous sessions, if you go back, there are a lot of sessions we have covered with the networks, the way of working, and all the network related topology. So I'm just covering the very important parts that we do use in a day-to-day life, basically when we are designing a network solutions. And responsibility metrics we have already discussed. Now coming to networks. So before I start, network is a isolation context where actually the user workloads or a organization workloads that runs actually, and the basic concept behind having a network is to keep your workload or your services or the virtual machines that is running within your boundary, basically should be more secure within that network boundary, basically. Okay, so what is network access controls again? So it defines who all can access a specific network and how they can access. Okay, so this ensures VMs and services running in a specific network or the user network, you can say, are secured and only accessible to known stakeholders. Okay, now within that actually we will now be discussing a few different capability within a network, and we'll start with network security group. So network security group is the basic firewall across subnets within a VNet. So VNet stands for virtual network. We have already covered in our previous session, and within that virtual network we have different subnets to host different host the basically the network capabilities for that particular workloads, be it a web workload or a VM based workload, a data based workload. So those kind of services, if your use case is demanding, then you have to design those kind of subnets with the IP range. So that sits in a virtual network. Okay, so network security group is an important part of that, and that is nothing but a firewall across subnets, basically. So when within a VNets, if your subnets are communicating with another subnets, so that particular network security group will decide who can access what and how. So this filters that the traffic across two communication parties within network boundaries, I've already mentioned, and it also limits the traffic flow from network to the internet. Okay, so that is also it does. Now how it looks like? So basically, it's nothing but a it's nothing but a program again behind the scene, and that is having a priority, a network access rule, basically a rule name, or all the details of the source addresses and destination addresses, source port and destination ports. So this is how it looks like. Now coming to the second important aspect is Azure Firewall. So Azure Firewall is a native capability from Azure, and it provides protection to the workload running in Azure. Now, application and network specific rule can be set up using firewall capability within organization. So, what is a network specific rule? Network specific rule is more generic that your organization demands, whereas application specific rules are more your application specific. So, for example, in your organization you have a lot of applications running, but every application had a specific requirement. One application can connect to internet, other can connect to SaaS service. So that is more application specific rule, and both this generic and application specific rule can be set up in a Azure firewall. Now it is highly scalable and highly available Azure service, and it can also trace the inbound and outbound log as a part of security analysis. So these are the capability of Azure firewall. And if you see the 360-degree view, then In a hub and spoke architecture, it's always spokes that connect to Azure Firewall. And Azure Firewall, in a way, it does TLS filtering, URL filtering, IDPS, traceability, all those things. Okay, so these are the different capability of Azure Firewall. Now coming to virtual network. So Azure Virtual Network is the core and the main part of Azure Network Security. Is it represents the user organization network within the cloud. It provides a network context, a network boundary to the workload or services. Services can be injected or integrated as a part of requirement, and this can be used to control IPs, routing, peering, DNS, all these things basically within it itself. Now, a VNet can also be segmented into subnets based on the requirement. So, this is already I have described that you can segment a VNet into subnets based on your use case requirement. It can be wave data, those kind of workload if you are having, then you can also segment it to different subnets. In this small diagram, you can see there is VNet 1 and VNet 2. They are peering each other, and within one VNet, you can have different subnets like VM, database, web subnets you can create. You can define your own routing, and you can also have your DNS. Okay, so this you can do within an Azure VNet. Coming to Azure private link, it's a very important thing when you want to try to connect to a Azure pass that sits on the Azure backbone with a private topology. Okay, so Azure private link is a capability to use Azure pass service privately. So is a capability to connect Azure pass services privately. It provides a private endpoint for each pass services and establish a private peering between user network and Microsoft network. So in the diagram, if you see, on the left side is user network where you have a subnet or uh, where the PLE IPs are get assigned basically. And now you can create the different private link endpoint for different pass services that is sitting on the Microsoft boundary, Microsoft public boundary. Okay, so that is how a private connectivity can be established between a user network to a Microsoft network. Now it uses a private IP from the user network to be paired with Microsoft network. We've already discussed. So if you see the subnet, that will assign a private IP to each private link endpoint to be connected to the respective pass services. So that is how it works. Now coming to Express route, it is a dedicated connectivity link from user network to Microsoft network. So the connectivity gets enabled by service provider again. So if you see in the diagram, there is a user network. That user network connects to a partner edge network, and that partner edge network using Express route actually established a connectivity to the Microsoft Edge. Okay, so this is the private connectivity between the provider to the Microsoft Edge, and from there it can connect to different pass services, or it can also connect to a different virtual network. So that is how it works. So with Express route, you can establish connection to Microsoft cloud services such as Microsoft Azure 365, etc. Now, Express route connection do not go to internet and more secure than a VPN connectivity. So the important part is whenever you have an Express route connectivity using the partner edge network, it will never go to never exposed to the internet, and it always travels through a private line. Okay, so private way you can say. So that is why it is more secure. Okay, so this is all about Express route. So that's it I wanted to cover because most of the network and part we have already covered in our previous sessions. If you go back to our list of directories or list of sessions we have already covered in our YouTube channel. So uh, I I was I don't want to cover a lot of stuff on network. We've already done that. So as a part of network security, these are the four or five important aspects that I wanted to discuss with you. So that's it. If you want to learn more about it, you can again follow the link where actually you will go through all the six technical building blocks of Azure security, and you can deep dive more into that. So that's it for the day. Thank you and have a good day.